Hey, welcome back. This is Catherine, and today we're going to talk about 3 things that can help keep you safe, your clients safe, and your family happy. They're the most important 3 things we will ever talk about, and you're going to hear about them in just a second. The first cardinal rule of caregiving is something that most people probably don't think about until they're many years into caregiving, and that is never, under any circumstances, pretend to have expertise that you don't actually have. Parents and families will actually ask you all the time to step out of your expertise box and provide information that you're not qualified to provide, that you don't have. So, number one thing you need to be thinking about, do I actually have the training to answer this question? And a lot of times the answer is no. So, for example, I once had a family ask me after they started another program, after they were mostly out of my care, if their child's behavior and emotional changes were normal. And at the surface, you can say, wow, this doesn't seem normal for this child, and this doesn't seem right, but I don't actually have the qualifications to answer this question. So some of the changes were physical, some of them were emotional, and my gut said, no, this isn't right, something's not right. But I am not qualified to tell them why. So the suggestion I gave them was contact your child's doctor. Anytime you have the slightest concern about your child, reach out. Pediatricians answer phone calls, they answer emails. You do not always have to have a meeting with them in person. And so my suggestion was reach out to your pediatrician. Because I just, if I say that's completely normal, a child may go without care and treatment that they actually need, which is extraordinarily dangerous. So one thing to know is, like, a lot of times parents are right. If they feel that something's off with their child, a lot of times they're right. So guide them toward someone who would know, a pediatrician, a social worker, whoever is working on their case, literally anyone above you, who might be someone in the right direction. Because if I had pretended to know that this was normal, or if I had pretended to know that this was definitely not normal, both of those paths are problematic. On one hand, what if this child had encountered some kind of trauma at this new place? What if this child was ill? On the other side, if I said, no, this is definitely not normal, they may pull him from the program for no reason. That could be so disruptive to their lives. What they need to do is see someone who actually is qualified to answer that question. So in caregiving, always defer to someone with more knowledge. If you do not have the training, and most of the time you don't, be honest with yourself. Most of the time you might know because you read it, but you don't actually have the legal qualification. So don't answer questions that you don't know the answer to. Always send your client's family to someone who knows. The second cardinal rule of caregiving, so important and so basic, you're going to probably roll your eyes, is safety is the cake and fun are the sprinkles, the icing, whatever. It's safety is the cake, fun is the icing. You cannot prioritize crafts or physical therapy or getting out into the community over basic safety. So if you have a day where your client is just going through it, maybe they don't feel well. A lot of times our clients don't feel well, and sometimes they don't let us know, and sometimes they do. And so sometimes you need to take a step back. You need to focus on those activities of daily living. And if no one has told you before, because it took a long time for anyone to say anything to me about it, but if no one has told you before, it is a-okay. It is perfectly fine for you to have one or many days in a row where all you do is keep your client safe, period. So if all of your activities during the day are feeding, bathing, cleaning, bathroom related, readjusting, and just general safety, that is fine. What? Fine. It's totally fine. Parents may pressure you to do fun activities. You may feel intrinsic pressure. A lot of times I feel pressure from myself and nowhere else to do fun things, to get out into the community, to do art projects and like explore new sensory experiences. But it's okay if your client is having a hard day to just take a step back and only do what is absolutely necessary. The only thing that is going to get you in legal trouble is a safety concern here. If you never do something fun with your client, maybe in a couple years you may lose your job. Maybe. The only thing that could put you in jail is a safety concern. So if you're prioritizing a craft over basic safety, if you're rushing and taking risks over basic safety so that you can get fun things done, you put yourself, not just your client, you put yourself and your future at risk. So sometimes it's a good idea to stop, take a break, and just write off all of your fun things for the day and just focus on getting safe. That's fine. You have permission to do that, and that's what you should be doing. This leads me to the third and probably most important cardinal rule out there, which may be another thing that you roll your eyes at because it sounds a lot like the common self-care, self-care, self-care that we hear all day long now. But this is critical. This is absolutely critical. It is so important. You need to be taking care of yourself first, period. If you show up to work, you feel gross because you haven't had a shower, you woke up late, you're exhausted, you haven't had breakfast, you're thirsty, maybe you're sad because something happened at home, maybe you're fighting with someone, maybe you're concerned because you think you're ill. These things are critical problems. They are so important. If you're hungry, you need to be eating. Tuck snacks in your pocket, eat on the way to work, do what you need to do to get yourself fed. And if you have to put your client down somewhere safe to make that happen, do it. If you need to go to the bathroom and it's on your mind and you really need to go, take a safety break, go to the bathroom. If your client is screaming, sometimes we have clients who are really, really loud. Sometimes we have clients who are in a lot of pain. Sometimes we're having a hard time processing the emotions that are already in the room when your client's having a hard time. Sometimes you're having a really hard time, right? So recognize that in yourself and say, I am getting overwhelmed. This room is too loud for me. I need to take a quick break. So if your client is safe for the moment, you know your client is going to be safe, step out of the room, take some deep breaths, get a drink of water, do what you need to do, go pet the family dog, whatever you need to do to settle yourself for a second, pull yourself together, relax so that no one gets hurt. Because the worst possible outcome is that you get overwhelmed, you're not feeling great, and you react harshly to your client and somebody gets hurt. Because not only does that hurt your client and hurt the family, it could land you in prison. That's a very, very real risk in caregiving. You're dealing with high-risk situations with real people. So if you overreact and you harm someone, you could end up in prison. So take this very seriously. Eat a snack, drink some water, have some caffeine if you can have caffeine, or get a better night's sleep. Sometimes you have to ask to go home. I'm dead serious. If you're having a day where you're like, I can't do this right now, go home. It is so much better to inconvenience a family by saying, hey, I need you to come home. I'm really struggling. Honestly, sometimes it's better to lose your job. I am so serious. Please hear this. Anything is better than putting your client at risk, period. Do what you need to do to make your client safe. That's what you're there for. Even if it comes at the cost of your job, because what you don't want it to do is cost your client their health and safety or their life and cost you your future because you're in prison as a result. So, I know that's a lot of kind of stressful information, but these are the 3 most critical pieces of caregiving. If you learn nothing else before you go into the world of caregiving, you need to know these 3 things to protect yourself from legal trouble and protect your client and keep everyone safe, period. And so what you're going to find on this channel is that I am going to repeat these 3 things every single time you see me because they are that important. They are so important that you need to be referring back to them every day. Are these 3 things being done? And if they're not, know that you are at risk. Your life, your livelihood, and your future are at risk. It's not always about the client. We want to keep the client safe, period. But when your client's not safe, you are not safe. Hear that. So that's what you're going to hear from me going forward. Anytime we talk, we're going to talk about these 3 things. Just as a quick reminder to make sure you know, check in with yourself. Are my activities today meeting the 3 cardinal rules? If they are, you're doing great.